Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Tatiana, I'm a certified nutritionist and I'm here today to talk a little bit more on the topic of weight loss and how I can help you in achieving your goals. Today we're going to talk about topics like setting realistic goals and why is it so important to focus on the weight loss, how big of a pandemic it is nowadays. We're also going to touch on nutrition and diet. We'll talk about physical activity and we're going to talk about behavioral and lifestyle changes, of course. So let's get right into it. I'm going to be looking at my notes here and we'll cover the topics that I just mentioned. If you have any questions all the way throughout the video, feel free to put them in the comments. I will see them and I will do my best to answer your questions as well at the end of the video. This should take me about, I would say 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. Maybe it's going to be a little bit longer or shorter. It depends how it goes. And yeah, I'd be happy to chat with you as well. And if you have any questions afterwards as well, feel free to send them to me. So let's get right into it. So weight gain and obesity. How common is actually this condition in our modern society? Well, it's actually more common than you think. You may think that it is. So right now, about 1 billion of people in the whole wide world have an excess weight. So that's about 1/6 of the population of the whole world that have an excess weight. And about every 5th person by 2025, which is this year, not by, but in this year, every 5th person will have an obesity. So if you think about your group of friends or your group of people that you know in your circle of people that you normally talk with or you meet on a daily basis, one of those 5 people is gonna have an obesity in this year. So that's a huge number, and that number isn't decreasing, it's only increasing, and the age of that problem is not decreasing as well, it's actually becoming younger. So more and more children and adolescents are becoming obese and have an excess weight. So that's a huge thing. Before, when it was just more of an age thing, then people were aging, and with the menopause and andropause, people would get excess weight. That was kind of the thing of people who are older. But now, because it has changed so much in our modern society, because we have an excess of everything, like we've developed so far and we've come so far, and we have an excess of everything and we have a freedom to choose, and oftentimes we market it the way that we choose, we make the wrong choices. So let's get into more details about how we can go about it and what we can do for our personal health and how we can improve it, and have, if that's the goal for you to have a weight loss, then how can you achieve that goal? So point number 1 is setting realistic goals. Nothing, nothing crazy to start with, but it's actually very important understanding where you are at the moment, because you want to have a starting and a base point to understand where you are, what conditions you have, what symptoms we have. Put it down on a paper and maybe answer a questionnaire. Let's say if you work with a professional, like let's say a nutritionist or a dietitian, or if you work even with a doctor, they normally ask you a series of questions to understand where you are at, to understand what symptoms you have. Is it high blood pressure, for example? Is it, excess weight? Is it tiredness? Like, is it, lack of energy? Maybe there is, you have problems with your hair, with your nails, whatever it is. So they ask you a series of questions. And when you think about those questions and you think before you put the answers down, writing them down, you can actually think through and understand where you're at. And when you're thinking through that, something else comes to mind, and then you're thinking, well, I actually didn't think about it before. And sometimes you can create a logical picture of what it is that has created that pattern for you, and what it is that caused maybe that excess weight or whatever the symptom that you're having. So it's actually, like a logical way to put everything down, to think through and to create a picture for yourself. So that's going to be a starting point. That's going to be your baseline of where you are right now before you can move on and you can measure, right? Like you can measure of where you want to be. And what I want to mention here is one thing. Sometimes when you answering those questions, either for yourself or for a professional, when you're answering those questions, you want to think of like anything that can come to your mind. Like, you know, sometimes we're so used to living with certain symptoms that those symptoms seem normal to us. They seem to be our norm, but they are not the norm. So I'll give you an example. Let's say a normal blood pressure is 120 over an 80. So then that's the norm, right? That's healthy. But then other people, they have lived with, you know, over the years, their blood pressure have increased, have raised, let's say to like 140 to 100. And so for them, it became their norm. And they feel okay, like functioning every day, even though their blood pressure has increased. But they are so used to functioning in that state that for them, it became the new norm. And so they think like, well, that's normal. Like I live with it every day. I don't feel anything out of the extreme. They can feel the symptoms of the high blood pressure, but for them, they're just so used to that they think it's okay, it's normal. So when you're answering those questions and when you're creating that picture for yourself, I want you to think of maybe something that wasn't always there for you, but it now is, you know, existing in your daily life. That can create a fuller picture, a better picture, and actually see, and you can track it yourself and see where it's coming from. What's the origin of that symptom and that thing. And another thing that I wanted to say, so sometimes there are so many symptoms when you're creating that picture for ourselves. It creates, you know, like, well, I have, let's say, high blood pressure, I have an excess weight, I may have high cholesterol levels, I may have a problem with sugar, so like high blood sugar, type 2 diabetes or whatever that is, or maybe like low energy level. And so you created that picture and you have so many symptoms and you're like, well, you know, this is overwhelming. What do I do with it? Like, where do I start? Do I start with the high blood pressure? Do I start with an excess weight? Where to go, like what to do. And one thing I want to say is that when we're right now, marketing is just amazing, right? Like if whatever we want, like anything that we want, we can look at an advertisement of that thing and then we can decide, do we want it, do we not want it? And so where I'm going with this is that when we're watching a TV, when we're bombarded with those ads, when we see those advertisements, those ads tend to address their specific target market. And so if you're watching it, and I'm just taking like an average person, let's say like a middle age, right? And so they know that they probably have those, especially if they search something on the internet, they know that you've had that, search query or you have that issue. So they're going to be showing you ads and saying, well, if you want to solve your high blood pressure, then take this pill. If you want to solve your high cholesterol problem, then take this pill. If you want to lose weight, then take this pill. And that's going to work for you, right? And so be like, okay, well, I got to take this pill, I got to take this pill, I got to take this pill, and that's going to solve everything. But this is not really how it works. It works because it's going to remove the symptom, like it's going to make you lose weight or reduce the blood pressure, but it's not going to solve the actual thing that caused it in the first place. And so that, if you're going to stop taking the pill, is it going to come back again? And probably yes, it's going to come back. The chances are that it's going to come back. And so we need to understand that marketing, when we have something, we need to figure out what it is, how do we solve it, and not solving it just by kind of putting a band-aid on it, but actually solving, understanding where it came from, and then digging it down and figuring that out first, because that's going to remove the symptoms, because the excess weight, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, those are symptoms. Your body is giving you signals that something is not working as it should be working. And so just remember that, because when we are looking at, what's marketed at us, that's a big business in anything. I mean, like, we're living in such a great world. Like, we wouldn't know about things if there is no place for marketing, if there is like no place for video ads, and that's a great thing. But we need to just, know a little bit more and make a better judgment of how do we approach that. Like, do we actually need that next little thing that's gonna, we think is gonna help and solve all of our problems. So I hope that's clear. So the next point I want to cover is that, well, when you're creating that picture for yourself, it may become overwhelming. So taking small steps, breaking them down into small steps. Like, what do you want to address first? Sometimes, as I said, all those symptoms that we're putting down on paper when we're creating that picture, that baseline for ourselves, okay, where we are at the moment, we're putting it down and we think, okay, well, like, where do I start? And sometimes we need to start with, like, one thing, like, what is the priority? What is the priority that I can address? And when you take in that thing, you can move on to the next one. Give it a month and you can move on to the next one, and then the next one and the next one. And sometimes when you address one thing, the rest of the things will just shave off. They're not going to be there anymore. So that's going to be an easier way to approach that as well. And yeah, that's really the best way to go about it, without getting overwhelmed and without not even starting, because there are just so many things that, it seems unbearable and it seems too hard to start and to fix it all at the same time. So the next thing is nutrition and diet. I'm not talking any rocket science here. If you're waiting for me to say, well, if you want to lose weight, I'm going to tell you, like, to take this, like, one pill, the magic pill, and that's going to work for you. I'm not really here to tell you that. I'm going to go through the basis of what a person can be doing for themselves in the long term, right? Starting from small steps that's going to work in the short term and in the long term as well, because in the long term, like, that's where we want to be. We don't want to do something for a week, get a result, and then the week after, everything's going to come back. Like, there's no point. Like, it's just going to be a waste of our time. It's going to be a waste of our energy. We don't want to get disappointed and, have a negative kind of association with such an experience. So when we're talking about nutrition and diet, we want to understand that, as I mentioned, our high blood pressure, our excess weight, those are symptoms that our body is not working correctly. And so, we need to understand, how did we actually get there? Did we, what was the nutrition? We were lacking in nutrition. There's an expression that says, get healthy to lose weight as opposed to lose weight to get healthy. It can work both ways. Like, sometimes people start losing weight and in the process they're, of course, they're getting healthier. They're everything is getting better. The blood pressure can go down, their cholesterol may go down. It really depends on the way of how you're approaching that. But the better way is to get healthy, and then the weight is going to come down as well, because the excess weight is a symptom, because something got broken in the process and you start gaining weight, and more weight you're gaining, it accelerates the process. So the more weight there is, the more there is a chance that it's going to be even adding more weight to that existing problem already. And so, getting healthier, and that's going to solve, it's going to detangle that, those problems, and it may, you can tackle a bunch of them at the same time. So nutrition is important. We are what we eat. If we eat a potato, we become a potato. If we eat chips, we become, looking like a bag of chips. If we're eating a carrot, then, it's a different story. So we are what we eat, and as simple as that. And we want to make sure that we're creating around our nutrition and our diet, we're creating more of a habit. It's more of a habitual thing, that we are reaching out for more wholesome foods, like for more whole foods that have not been processed. So, a banana is a banana, but then when we get crackers in the package, They're processed. It doesn't matter, if you're to make crackers, for example, like if you're making them at home, you take bread, you slice it, you put it in the oven, but how did that bread got made as well? Did you make it at home? Was it made in the store? So a lot of things are processed, really highly processed, that we are missing some key ingredients in those items, and we're missing the minerals and the vitamins. So what we're eating is we're just eating empty calories. Like we're eating those things, but there is nothing in it. So it's, it gives us a caloric intake, but there is nothing else besides that. There could be something, but there's not a lot. Like when it's highly processed, it means that it's been, a product's been taken, it's been processed into a different form, different shape, removed certain things from its natural state, and then it's been put together into a ready-to-go product. And so remember how I talked about marketing? Now with our amazing worlds, we have so many different foods. We have so many different options. We have candies and cakes and chips and ready-to-go meals, and we have frozen, and we have ready-to-go hot meals too. Anything that's being ready to picked up. And it's easy and it's convenient, and it's amazing because it saves us time, it saves us energy. Not everyone likes to cook, not everyone wants to cook, right? Like spend the time on it, because everyone's now a professional of one thing. They focus just on that, so they don't want to spend the time doing something else, and that's okay. And so that's why we have, we're living in such a society where you can just get anything that you want, and it's widely available. So, but we need to make sure that we make the right choices for our goals. So if we have a goal of losing weight and creating a better health for that reason, then we need to make sure that we know what to choose from that shelf that's gonna get us closer to that goal, that is gonna get us closer to becoming healthier, and in return losing weight as a result of it, right? So educating ourselves and making better choices, even amidst all this marketing campaigns and amazing food choices that we have. So for example, if we think that we can think that we can eat, not a whole food, if we're eating processed foods, that we're not really getting much from it. So we're aiming for proteins, we're aiming for healthy fats, we're aiming for whole foods in general, right? So like chicken, vegetables, whatever vegetable like it is. It could be like a zucchini, it could be broccoli, right? Like those are just, one vegetable, one single ingredient, very easy to understand. It doesn't have a barcode on it. It hasn't been taken, like it wasn't a broccoli that was taken, put into flour and then added a bunch of other ingredients and then created some kind of like a healthy cake from it, right? Like it's just broccoli is broccoli. You can take it, it is what it is. It comes with whatever nutrients and minerals it has, and that's how we eat it, right? Like you can make a soup out of it, but you make it at home. So that's the deal. And adequate water intake, of course. So with a diet, you go for whole foods, you have an adequate water intake during the day. Well, it's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. There's no way around it. There's no magic pill. And for magic pills, again, like if you take that pill, whatever that is, right? Like there is a whole bunch as well. Like they're fat burning teas. They're, pills that are being prescribed right now for a whole bunch of different things that were like started originally from one, and now people think that they can take it and it's going to solve all their problems, like all their health problems. So if you think that that's going to be helping you, if you take that pill, think about it, because let's say your excess weight, like we're talking about weight today, right? So if your excess weight came from disbalance of your hormones, like your hormones are just out of whack, like they are not working properly. So you gained weight from that, and you take in a pill, and that pill is making you satiated. Like it slows down your metabolism, and it makes you not hungry. So you're not hungry, so you're not eating, so you're losing weight. So this is how, let's say that, the pill works. And then you lost the weight because you've taken the pill, you're not hungry, you're not eating, you've lost the weight, a week passed by, a month passed by, let's say you got your results, like you dropped 20 pounds, for example, and then you stop taking that pill. Your metabolism has slowed down, you probably have lost some muscle mass along with the fat. You haven't been feeling hungry, but now all of a sudden you stop taking the pill and you're feeling hungry again, like your just normal appetite is coming back. And you haven't developed a good relationship with food that we'll talk about later, and you haven't developed a healthy habitual eating, right? So you haven't developed a habit of buying and going for whole foods. So now all your old habits are coming back. So you're eating the same food you have been eating before that caused your hormonal imbalances in the first place. And your appetite is back. Your metabolism has slowed down because of you taking the pill. You've lost the muscle mass. So what do you think is going to happen here when you start eating again? So your fat's going to come back, and even in the greater consistency and the greater amounts, your muscles are not going to come back because probably there is no workout that has been incorporated. And your metabolism is slower and you're eating the same. So you're going to gain everything back and more. And it's going to be even worse, like from where you started. It's not going to be the same. It's just going to get worse. So really thinking about what we are choosing can make a huge difference, like end of the story. And so my next point is physical activity. So we talked about diet, of course, and then we're talking about physical activity, of course, because there's no one without the other. If we're looking to lose weight, hence become healthier, then physical activity is a necessity, and it should be loved. It shouldn't be hated. And I know, people say, but not everyone enjoys physical activity. I understand not everyone is used to that, right? Like not everyone has grew up with maybe doing something sporty or getting accustomed or, just becoming habitual with like doing anything, like any sport activities, and that's normal. But again, we just need to have this information in front of us. We need to make a choice of like what it is, because but in the end of the day, when we get into a point where it's really hard for us to maintain a life, it's hard because there is a bunch of health issues, right? Like you're gonna start walking. You're going to start walking if you haven't walked before, and you're going to get results. Because people think that, well, it's okay. Like, I've been living my life. Everything's been cool and dandy up until this point. So why do I do it now? Because it's getting worse. Because now you can't even maintain the same lifestyle you were doing, 5 years ago. It's hard to play with children. It's impossible to get up and down the floor. Let's say if you have like small children, like you want to, kind of like get down on the floor, pick them up or play with them, whatever, go up and down the stairs, carry groceries, right? Like those are simple things. Like everyone, like you want to be able to do that. You want to be able to speak normally without losing your breath. You want to make sure you can go up the stairs if you have a staircase in front of your house without losing a breath. Like you want to play with your grandkids if you have grandkids, like children if you have children. Like you just want to maybe enjoy life a little bit more, right? Like if you like active vacations, for example, like you want to make sure that you can enjoy all of that, and your physical challenges, right? Like they are a little bit easier to just go about it. And so when you're thinking about physical activity, it's really hard to, diet and physical come together, because it's really hard to be in shape without dieting. So let's say if you're just exercising, if you're like, the biggest gym junkie, like you exercise 3, 4 times, 5 times a week, if you're like that, especially if you've had a personal trainer or you've kind of like really educated yourself on that, that if you exercise this much, you still cannot get in a good shape if you don't eat well. Like if you don't eat clean, you're never gonna get results that you can get if you're eating in a nice clean way. So abs are made in the kitchen, right? It doesn't matter how much you exercise. If you're not eating the right way, it's not going to show. You're not going to be that cut and lean, right? And that's one way. And then if you're just dieting, if you're just eating without exercising, then you're not maintaining the muscle. Like you want to make sure that, and I'm not talking about showing your biceps or like have a flat abs and whatnot. It's just simple things. Like we want to maintain our muscle mass. So it helps us with all the activities that I just mentioned before, that you can support your body, that you can simply walk, down the street, like to a grocery store, that you can hold yourself from, brace yourself from like slipping on ice, for example, if you're living somewhere where, they're winter there. So, and the older we get, we start losing that muscle mass. So you want to at least maintain it, and maybe get stronger because you want to make sure your bones are stronger or at least maintaining the strength so you can prevent the breakage because healing is longer when you're getting older as well. So all those things are very, very important. And without physical activity, there is, you can't really sustain that. And physical activity comes into like a cardio part, and then it comes into a resistance training, strength training, right? So you can, for cardio, walking, great cardio, start slow, pick up your pace. That's a good cardio, right? Like go walking. Easy. Anyone can do it. Don't need to have any special equipment. You just need you and that's it. And just go walk and enjoy it. And then when you have strength training, like resistance training, that's important as well. And it's not just important for younger generation because like younger people, because you're like in the younger age, your hormones are boosting, right? Like you're strong, you're powerful, like you're ready to rock this world. But when you're getting older, you want to sustain and maintain, and you want to, maintain so you can actually live a longer and more comfortable life, like physically comfortable, so you can do more, as again, what we've talked about, like different activities that you can partake in. And so you need that strength. Without it, it's just going to be fat accumulating on top of fat, on top of fat, on top of fat, and it's going to be no muscle, not even, and it's going to be easier. So you need to understand, like, you have the muscle mass, and that's going to help you in burning fat. The less muscle mass you have, the less fat you're going to burn, right? So, it doesn't have to be complicated, but it has a lot of benefits, especially when you're getting older. So that's important. And yeah, so let's move on to the next topic. So behavioral and lifestyle changes. And that's an important thing as well. So behavioral and lifestyle. So behavioral is, psychological. So our behavior is habitual, is psychological, is what we feel like doing, what we don't feel like doing, what we have really created a habit of doing in our life. And it plays a huge role, especially in our eating. I find it very, very common. So we have, when we're happy, we want to celebrate and we want to have a celebratory meal. And then when we're sad, we want to find comfort. And so we go and find comfort in comforting food. And so often, again, in our great society, with food comes often alcohol. So, there is wine, there is beer, again, to celebrate or to comfort yourself, right? And so it's just part of our life. Like that's how it is. It's not just one-off. Remember the statistics that I gave you, that every fifth person is going to have an obesity this year. Like right now, every fifth person has an obesity. So it's not just one-off situation. It's not just, someone that I know has this problem. It's like that. And so how do people get is because we have, such a variety of everything. Is just we are so habitual, like we're so comfortable with living, and we're so comfortable, and we have this freedom of like choose whatever we want to choose, whatever our soul desires, we just go and get it, right? Like without thinking, because it's comfortable, because we want to treat ourselves, because we want to celebrate, or we want to comfort. And so that's very psychological, right? And It's very common. 1 in every 5 people that you know is, affected by this thing. So, so that's a huge thing. And emotional eating is, you can work through this, right? Like, it's just understanding is one thing, like, it's the beginning of the problem. When you understand it, you're like, okay, well, like, what do I do? I'm feeling a little bit sad today. So, okay, well, maybe I should go get like an ice cream. Like, you start thinking through this process, especially when you have goals, right? Like, you start catching yourself on the habits that you have been doing over and over again, especially when you're measuring. So we'll talk about specific measuring in the next video, not today, but when you're measuring your results, when you can see your numbers in your blood work, for example, you understand that, well, this is how it's been affecting you, and you can understand and rethink about the habits and then create new habits around it, right? Like, maybe look at the food not as a something that, like a ritual. It can be looked as something as a necessity. Like, we need to replenish our, storage. Like, we need to give ourselves energy, but it doesn't have to be as emotionally connected as we are so used to. Yeah, so like that. And for lifestyle, and stress as well. So before I go into lifestyle changes and stress, again, it's behavioral. It's very common. Stress is very high in our society, especially if you're living in the big cities. Is very huge. So we are so stressed. Like, it's chronic stress is a new thing as well. It's a common thing. Like, it's chronic. Like, it's chronic in the society. It comes hand in hand with obesity. Comes hand in hand with like emotional eating, stressful behavior. So, and that plays a role in our eating habits as well. So when we are stressed, again, we want to comfort. When we are stressed, our physical condition of our body changes as well. So, for example, you may think that stress is like a bad conversation with a boss, like when you had a confrontation with somebody, right? Like, that can be stressful. Yes, like a fight, like physical fight, like that creates stress, like creates like adrenaline, right? Like cortisol in our body is shooting up. That's physical. But in our world, it doesn't have to be as, as obvious. Stress can be anything that sets your body out of balance. And so, for example, maybe you just had a baby. Those are for new moms, for example. When you just had a baby, and so you cannot sleep through the night, all the way through the night, because you need to attend to your baby. Like, you need to feed it, you need to feed him and her, you need to give him attention, give him or her attention. And so you always are alert. Like, you always want to make sure that you're there for your kids when he or she needs you. And so as a result of it, you're not getting enough sleep and enough rest through the night. And so our body is meant to sleep through the night, because when we sleep, everything regenerates, everything kind of sets into places. We restore our energy. We wake up, we feel rested, rejuvenated, and ready to take on the world. And so when we don't sleep, and normally when we have a kid, new moms, so normally it takes away like a year, maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2 years out of your life in that schedule that you cannot really get a proper night's sleep. And it's good maybe if you get it through the day, but it's not really the same thing. And so when you're putting yourself into that situation, like when you're in that situation, like, I understand there is really no choice, right? Like, you have to do it. So, but when you're in that situation, when you're not sleeping, when you're not resting, your body is not getting enough rest through the night, you wake up the following day, after you got somewhat of a sleep, you wake up the following day and your body is tired. When your body is tired, one day is okay. Second day, it's already tired from before. Now you're pushing it a little bit harder. And then you're pushing it a little bit harder and further. And then you're pushing it a little bit more. And then it takes, if you look at a year, 365 days, that's a lot of days of not getting enough sleep and not getting enough energy, like not rejuvenating fully. And so when you wake up, your body starts craving, like, because it's tired, it needs energy. So because it didn't get that energy rejuvenation in the sleep, so it needs energy. So then it thinks, okay, what is the best way I can get energy? Because I need to push through the day, because I have a child, I have a responsibility. I want to make sure that I'm like fully alert. What do I do? Or first of all, you need to be fully alert. So like your stress goes up right away because you're like, okay, I need to focus. I didn't get enough sleep, but I can't really let myself, I can't let him or her down. I want to be like completely focused. And so what we do is, the fastest way to get energy, our body knows through the habitual over the years thinking, it can get like simple, like sugar. It can get quick energy from sugar. So anything that's, could be like an energy bar or whatever it is, like simple carbs will give you a very quick sugar rush. It's going to give you very quick energy. And oftentimes our body is craving that naturally because it's low on sugar, right? It's low on sugar, it's tired, it wants that sugar. So we start eating and trying to like get the energy because we need to get through the day. And often we can get, if you drink coffee, for example, you can get coffee, but now in the coffee you can add like a frappuccino. Because you're tired, because you're craving that sugar, so you get in that frappuccino because it's so sweet, and you get the coffee boost as well. So you got caffeinated and you got sugar rush as well, all at the same time. So that like whacks out your hormones altogether. So you and imagine doing it for 365 days at least, because, your baby is so little. You want to make sure that you do everything for him or for her. And you just must do it, right? You don't have another option. So that's what happens. And so when you're constantly going through that, like that creates a chronic stress, a chronic tiredness, and your body is just pushing itself and pushing itself and pushing itself, and then it just says, well, that's enough, like I can't do it anymore, and then something just goes off, like something breaks. But you can track it back and you can see where it started, and then you can oftentimes just go back and fix it so it works again as it should be. So just wanted to mention that on the stress management. Well, it wasn't really management, but like in terms of managing the stress, like we just need to understand what created it, right, in the first place, and then approach it from that way. Like, is it, do we overthink? Do we not get enough sleep? Then get enough sleep. Do we need to have a little bit more physical activity? Do we need to eat better so it doesn't create a constant inflammation in our body from like all the sugar that we're eating as well? So it really like depends on where we are. Last thing that I wanted to mention is professional support, getting professional support. So it's often overlooked, and people are trying to find, again, it's people are trying to find information on the internet, and there's a lot of information on the internet right now, and that's a really good thing. Like, it's good resources available there, like if you're looking for them. But getting the professional support is something that is necessary, oftentimes is necessary when you're in the when you have just extra 5 pounds, you're young, you're like, everything's good, it's like, it's fine, like, it's not a big deal, right? But when we remember, we talked right in the beginning, when we've created that list of symptoms, that we put it down on paper and we can see where we are, that's the base, like, our starting point. And we'll look at it and we're like, okay, like, where do I start? This is just seems so too much. This is when it's a good idea to seek professional help, because you can, first of all, get your questions answered. Second of all, you can bounce off your ideas off of each other, because you can talk with that professional and say, like, listen, well, this is how I've been feeling. What's going on? Like, this is what I've been doing. What's going on? Because they can answer, because they already have cases. They have successful cases. Because, as I said again, statistics says that we have 1 billion of people with excess weight, and 1 in every fifth person has an obesity. So there are cases. It's very common. It's very popular, not popular in a good way, but it's very common in our society. So there are people who specifically work with symptoms that you may already have, because there are other people that have similar symptoms as well. Every person is very individual, of course, but in the end of the day, there are similar symptoms, and there are similar causes to those symptoms as well, because we are different, but we are very much alike, and we live in similar societies. So it's a really good idea to talk to a professional to get your answers questions answered, and to see if you can actually get more information for yourself, so that can be helpful, and can be helpful just in your life, when how you can approach your specific situation. And yeah, lastly, I just wanted to say that we are done with this video for today. In the next video, that's going to be coming out sometimes in the next week or so, we're going to talk a bit more about how we can measure our results, right? Like what sources and tools that we have to measure our results, and even our starting point as well. We can talk about tracking our progress. We'll talk about sustainable habits as well, how we can incorporate that, social and our other environmental factors that can play a role on our excess weight and maybe changes in our health. And understanding our individual differences as well. So, and last point is going to be there on avoiding fat diets. So there are different diets that we can go with. They're very individual as well, and they're for very different cases also. So not falling for fat diets and quick fixes, and we just briefly talked about this video as well. So if you follow me, then you're gonna see a link to the next video. If you don't follow, sign up for my channel. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I'll be happy to speak with you in the next video as well. I thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, everybody.